Bearcat Blitz. It's another edition of the show right here on the Believe Network, taking you into the weekend on whatever platform you're checking us out with, whether that's YouTube or the podcast routes, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you find us. Rate us and review us there. Share with your friends to help the show grow as we gear up for the waning days of the off season. A little less than 6 weeks until the Cincinnati Bearcats football team is ready to roll for camp at Higher Ground in Indiana. Fall camp almost here for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team. And then the season will be here right around the corner after that. We'll discuss the football team to start off the show. They added their 13th commit to the class of 2026. And then we have basketball making some waves. They got on the practice floor as teammates this week and in recent weeks and beyonds. And they did a little fun trip to Topgolf, got an introduction of the squad from freshman Keyshawn Tillery, and we'll give you that to take you into the weekend right here on Bearcat Blitz. Stick with us across these messages as we get into the show in just a few moments. Starting things off on Bearcat Blitz with another offensive line commit for the Cincinnati Bearcats in the class of 2026. Three-star 2026 offensive tackle Luke Grover out of Olentangy, joining his brother Gavin, also out of Olentangy, on the Cincinnati Bearcats train. Grover, 125th best offensive tackle in the nation, 78th ranked player in Ohio as a three-star talent, held offers from Miami of Ohio and NC State among close to double-digit total offers in all, and as I mentioned, is the 13th commitment in Cincinnati's 2026 football class. Neil, they have done a good job of accumulating offensive line talent so far. They're up to nearly half the class is made up of offensive linemen as we sit here on June 20th.
Yeah, and it's a good thing too, Russ. Following the addition of Luke Grover, which for many people who have followed his recruitment, it was kind of a no-brainer for him to come to Cincinnati. I feel like just despite that he's been around Cincinnati for what seems to be the last 3 to 4 years. Obviously, him being a upcoming senior in high school, I mean, he knows what Cincinnati's all about. He saw it firsthand when this staff was recruiting his brother heavily and Gavin, and obviously Gavin, another big tight end addition, 6'7". We saw that last season. We know what impact he can make for this team, but it's interesting to see Russ, and we got to talk about. I'm curious to what the Grover family is feeding these young kids because they are massive, massive human beings. And Luke is going to play a big role for Cincinnati. He fits the mold of what a offensive lineman under Nick Cardwell really will look like. He had offers from NC State, a couple ACC schools. He elected to come stay home in the Ohio area and play for Cincinnati, have the opportunity to play with his brother, something that not many kids get to do in this age. But it's interesting to see, like you mentioned, that nearly half of this recruiting class of 2026 is on the offensive tackle kind of aspect. You look down, you see out of the 13 commits, you have Luke Grover at offensive line. You have Nolan Zepitelli at offensive line, Austin Hone at offensive line. So there's three. You have Luke Collins, that's four. And then you have Solomon Mathis, who's five. So overall, five of your 13 commits in the 2026 class are on the offensive line. And you look at the stature of all of them. Solomon Mathis, 6'5", 285 pounds. Luke Collins, 6'5", 280 pounds. Then you go up to Austin Hone, 6'4", 285 pounds. Nolan Zappatelli, 6'5", 280 pounds. They have the height and the stature to be a Big 12 caliber offensive lineman, and that is going to be the new stature and the new kind of phase of what people are looking at in the offensive line in this conference. They know that many Big 12 guards or tackles or offensive linemen can make it to the league. But the new structure for offensive linemen in this conference is 6'3", 290 pounds as a true freshman, or at least above. Cincinnati probably had the shortest offensive line last season, but was still one of the best in the country. And Nick Cardwell's now getting his full opportunity to really go after the guys he wants, see his frame in year three, and kind of put together the model that they're trying to build on the offensive line.
Yeah, Neil, and it seems like as the staff has kind of cemented its plan in terms of roster building and how they want to set up their roster structuring each year, it's looking like go after the kind of diamonds in the rough in the trenches early on, try to get them into the program early, try to develop them and keep them in the program and not let them get to the transfer portal, and then identify your linebackers, your safeties, your cornerbacks, your wide receivers in the transfer portal, those skill position players in the transfer portal, and not necessarily target them as much in the high school ranks. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If you can be able to develop these players into much higher level talents than they're recruited as, that gives you a lot less worry to have to go out and get a guy like Joe Cotton to fill a much needed role at right tackle or at left tackle on the outside, which is what they're having to do this fall. You don't have to necessarily do that as often if you have this pipeline churning of developing offensive linemen through the system year over year from young to veteran status.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's huge because I think we've heard Scott Satterfield mention it multiple times about what a Big 12 starting offensive lineman cost in the transfer portal nowadays.
Yep.
You're looking at your two positions of need in the transfer portal. I feel like your quarterback, we all know what kind of money is getting tossed around to a good quarterback in college football right now. But then right behind him is your offensive lineman. Joe Cotton probably got a decent amount in NIL money to come to Cincinnati. Everybody knows that, especially with the list of offers that he had once he entered the portal. But a starting offensive line, Russ, in the transfer portal is probably anywhere near 500 to $750,000 in NIL right off the get-go here in the transfer portal in the new era of college athletics. And I think you could be right there in that boat. I'm curious to hear what your number is in that aspect, but that's probably what a starting offensive lineman is close to getting an NIL in terms of transfer money.
No doubt, no doubt. They're up to 13 commits in the class of 2027 or class of 2026, excuse me. Yeah, I have no idea what the numbers look like for. I mean, it's impossible to really. Does anyone have any idea what the numbers look like? It's not publicly available information. There's no collective
Yeah,
bargaining agreement. I mean, one insider has a different number on a Tuesday,
every
and then you check
insider's gonna
today,
have a
it's a
number. I feel
completely
like,
different
yeah,
number here. You mean we got people reporting Cooper Flagg made close to $30 million in NIL last year. $30 million in one season. I don't really necessarily believe that, but why would you have reported it if you didn't have it on strong authority? So it's just we can't really know for sure until this thing gets all collectively bargained and ultimately put into the public conscience, which is, I think, a ways away. I would be shocked if anything like that happened this decade, at least in the sport of college football or college basketball. Speaking of college basketball, let's get to the Bearcats' new look team that's getting together and bonding this summer ahead of a massive, massive season, arguably the most important season of Wes Miller's career this coming fall. Bearcat Blitz rolls on here with a shift to the basketball side of things. And Neil, clips starting to come out from practice. We got Sean Abaya tossing lobs to Mustafa Tiam. We got the players having fun at Top Golf this week in the off season, really starting to gel and come together and build what is the most dramatic change roster wise of the entire Wes Miller era so far. They have not turned over the roster as much as they have this offseason and any other offseason. So getting on the same page and getting as many reps together as possible this month, next month, the month after, as much as you can before that early November start date is super, super important. Before we get to the introductions from Keyshawn Tillery, they did add a player. And
Mhm.
I think, Neil, safe to say, I mean, I would be shocked if they added any more scholarship players given the start to add walk-on guys now. They bring in Grant Darbyshire out of Kentucky, a Cincinnati native, played his high school ball at Sycamore and spent 3 years at Kentucky. Appeared in, let's see, what did he appear in? Like 13 games, six career games at Kentucky over 3 seasons. Brings kind of the winning aspects of that program, has seen that firsthand, and can kind of bring that together and help put together the best kind of winning chemistry combination for this upcoming team. Kentucky obviously very well known to turn over their roster every single year and still have solid success as they did under Mark Pope in his first season at the helm last fall and beyond. But just kind of rounding out the roster, Derbyshire should be just the next cog in the walk-on machine for Cincinnati, helping them get as tightened up and as locked in during practices throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and it's worth noting too, Russ, that this was a position that many knew that they were going to add. Now, the question was going to be who was this individual walk-on going to be? And Grant Derbyshire comes from Kentucky, like you mentioned, Cincinnati native, and it's something that Cincinnati and Wes Miller and this staff have done a great job at, and that's bringing local guys to be walk-ons, right? You've seen it in the past, now has an opportunity here this year, but we kind of knew maybe they might go in there and they get one or two other guys in the transfer portal, but we really expected one or two of those walk-ons to be considering the new roster limit and all that kind of stuff. So overall, to see another Cincinnati native come on staff under Wes Miller, it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see what kind of role he fills in, but it would be safe to imagine that it's going to be a role like a CJ Anthony, a JJ Rembert from a season ago, one of those guys kind of roles for this upcoming season.
Yeah, exactly. I would be shocked at this point if any more scholarship players join the roster, as there are two spots left. Technically, they want to add up to 15 guys, and we have seen them release roster numbers for the first 12 players. Anything stick out to you from that, Neil? I mean, it's just people eat up the roster number stuff for some reason. I mean, I could care less what the jersey numbers are. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see too, because obviously people, when you look at this roster this year, everyone's going to know your first two numbers and Day Thomas and Jizzle James,
Yeah.
being that they've been around the program for a little bit. But outside of that, everyone's going to be looking for a new jersey, it appears. Outside of your Halvin DeZellit, everyone's going to be looking for a new jersey. It's going to be interesting. And Russ, I'm really excited to see Tyler McKinley this year. I think that's going to be one of the fan favorites for this team. You're going to love his personality. You
Who I
saw it in
think
the
is
video.
keeping the same number. He is not switching his number
Yeah, he is
at
keeping the
all.
same number, so that will be good for him. But outside of that, Jalen Haynes rocking a three, I kind of like that. You never see a big man rocking number three, I feel like nowadays. But number five for Sincere Harris, that kind of fits because that's what he wore at West Virginia. Keyshawn Tillery's going to wear number seven. Sean Abayev wearing number 10 could be pretty interesting. Same with Kirk Carissa with number 11. There's a lot of good numbers out there this year, I feel like. All low numbers, too, outside of Mustafa TM and Jalen Celestine, too.
Yeah, and Hal being going with 65 as well. Numbers locked in for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball roster. And we got a nice little intro from Keyshawn Tillery. He seems like he might be a really fun player to cover and follow with how outgoing he's been on Cincinnati media so far.
Him and
And
Tyler McKinley together could be a pretty funny duo. We've
yeah,
seen some pretty funny duos in the past, Russ, but I think Keyshawn and Tyler McKinley is gonna be an electric duo. Did you see that clip too where he was like, "Hey," I think Ethan asked, Tyler was like, "Hey, you want the camera?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is shot by TK or TY today. If it ain't by TY, then it ain't right."
there you go. I
So
like
it's
it.
going to be interesting. There's a lot of good personalities. It's exciting for fans to kind of see what Tyler McKinley's personality and what he's all about. Obviously, for those who haven't followed him, now that he's back healthy from the knee injury, it's going to be great to see him on the court this year.
That it will. That it will. That about does it for this episode of Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out on this week's shows. We'll be back twice a week moving forward, starting on this coming Tuesday. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. Have a great weekend, everybody.